relationship, aren't we? The media and Harry and Meghan, because they keep doing stuff wanting attention. Then they get quite adverse reaction most of the time. Then they react really badly to the reaction. And so it goes on.
Well, what it really boils down to is the threat they offer. If the threat was punctured, which I hope my book will.
The king has been pleased by letters patent under the Great Seal of the realm to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince. That wasn't some royal insider chatting up the street at an elite London party. This was official. Cold, rigid, permanent. A government record stamped into history forever, and the timeline makes it all the more intense. 13 days. But just 13 days from announcement to publishing. This was all a prince needed to lose anything associated with his royal identity. No endless debates, no glorious public argument, just signatures, paperwork, gone. Then arrived a remark that caused royal observers to pause. 3 weeks ago, royal biographer Andrew Lowney spoke to News Nation with a tone that came across less as speculation than as a warning. Hear precisely that. One of Prince William's first tasks will be to take the Duke and Duchess titles off his brother and sister-in-law, and the Prince and Princess titles the entire family shares.
Well, I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable, but I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it, and secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain. So I think it's always the same. He wants his cake and eat it.
Not maybe, not possibly, not people around the palace believe. He said, first, tasks. That changes everything. It presents a future underway already on the walls of the palace. The second the crown changes hands, the list is done, and Harry and Meghan could easily be at the head of it. And when the money and branding and business deals come to the matter. For so long, Meghan's public image has been an extension of royal standing. Netflix, Archewell, American Riviera Orchard, speaking deals, media-related projects, they all bear down on you. It all bears the weight of those titles. If those titles fade from our memory, the shockwaves can hit every nook in that empire in a day.
I think they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. And I think as of this week, the signal for her great problem is that she turned up at Kevin Costner's party for the emergency workers.
The more disturbing aspect of this is that the pattern hides under plain sight. What Andrew had was more than just a punishment. It may have been a test run, a peek into what can legally be done when the monarchy opts to act quickly. William followed the process step by step. He observed how letters patent operated. He witnessed firsthand how quickly royal status could disappear. Most telling of all, he saw none stepped in and stopped it. So now everyone is asking whether the blueprint is there already. And not just for Harry and Meghan, but for Archie and Lilibet too. What if the machine is already turning? The next moment drew Royal Circle's eyebrows again. March 26, 2026. Tom Bower issues betrayal, power, deceit, and the fight for the future of the royal family. The title alone sounds like a warning sent to windows of the palace. Now, many of you are probably feeling the same way at this time. Didn't Tom Bower go after Harry and Meghan before that, back in 2022? Did that book not provoke outrage everywhere? It absolutely did. Revenge raced up the news with allegations from dozens of outlets, claimed contradictions, and months of arguing. Meghan and Harry's side reportedly called it deranged conspiracy and melodrama. But this time feels entirely different, and that's when the tension begins to mount. In 2022, Bauer had a debate about what could happen within the royal family. But by 2026, he's writing like someone chronicling a transition that has already taken place off-limits inside palace doors. That's a massive difference. One is speculation, the other sounds like certainty. And then there's the line where people are talking nonstop. Bauer writes on page 327 of Betrayal. Harry must have been shocked by the tremors of the unprecedented sanctions against Andrew. In public, he remained silent.
She is desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem because he's lost his charity centre Bailey in Africa. He better up, and all these commercial deals are declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic. And I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and there'll be problems with that too.
In private, he decided that his own royal status had lost its aura of invincibility. No longer invincible. Those 3 words hit hard. Because this isn't being cast here as gossip or mere palace talk. Bauer makes Harry's private reckoning out of an eyewitness moment after he sees Prince Andrew's real life losing royal standing within minutes in real time through official acts. Imagine watching someone internal to your own family publicly dismantled by the institution itself, and all of a sudden, the untouchable stuff starts to seem remarkably delicate. And if Harry was privy to that change, people are now asking a bigger question. What was the scene with Meghan's advisors from behind the scenes at that special moment? Because in such a world of joint royal titles, branding, contracts, and public identity, the words legal suddenly have an additional meaning that should not be out of place. But here's the twist which people don't understand really. Lawyers can fight the headlines. For example, they can contest stories. They can issue statements and threaten legal action. What you can't do, though, is end letters patent once the monarch has made up his mind. That's what made this so intense. Letters patent do not require Parliament's approval. They don't require public approval. They don't need some epic national vote on television to be made. As the House of Commons Library explained in September 2025, letters patent is primary legislation once sealed. No consent required, no delay, no public negotiation. That means the global public backlash will hardly register unless the Crown steps up. Critics could say it is unfair, they could say it is political, they could say it is personal or strategic, but none of that changes the mechanism itself. The pen still moves. And that's why understanding this process changes it all.
Sexual life, which I dropped out on the grounds of privacy laws in Britain.
Oh my God, I have got to get you intoxicated, Tom Bauer. I would love to hear those stories.
Yeah. I think I've forgotten them.
Oh no!
But
then apparently they weren't that good.
They were very good.
Oh no!
I mean, the privacy laws are pretty strong here, and that's what she used as a weapon at the time. So there were quite a few things about her personal life.
Letters patent sounds old and cryptic, something that lies hidden inside dusty palace archives. But it is much simpler and far more powerful. One official royal proclamation can, in an instant, reset titles, status, and royal identity. No parliamentary vote, no national debate, no public consultation. The monarch makes the decision, and now it is law. That's all what makes this whole thing sound so creepy to royal watchers. People picture endless legal fights and months of political drama, but the reality can unfold with startling speed. And we found already evidence of that. On October 30th, 2025, Buckingham Palace issued the following statement. His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and honors of Prince Andrew. The letters patent was publicly published by the London Gazette on November 5th, 2025, just days after the original announcement. This is from beginning to end, and 13 days. A royal title that had existed for decades, all of a sudden being torn away through a process that most of us hardly grasp until we see it occur before us. But here's when things get a little more complicated, because there are 2 different types of titles involved, and they don't work the same. Many online commentators keep blending them as such, but the difference matters more than many recognize. The titles Prince, Princess, and the style HRH are under letters patent. Those can be corrected directly by royal authority. One signature, one sealed document, and it's good to go. Quick, concise, and just terrific. But Duke and Duchess are not the same thing.
What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was cheered as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty and all the values of the Queen and all the tradition and the 1,000 years of history. So people were cheering not just the person, but also the institution. I mean, clearly she was very attractive and she did, magnify and was magnetic for in her own right.
Those are peerages, and in principle and officially in practice, removing a peerage would require Parliament. Sounds safer, right? Not exactly, because there's the alternative buried deep inside the system that would transform everything. A title can be suspended from official use without a full legal end to it. It's the very detail that folks missed in the Andrew scenario. Prince Andrew may technically retain the Duke of York title in an insular legal sense. But once removed from the role of the state, the title's actual power is lost. For official documents, business transactions, and court filings alike, it cannot be formally used. On paper, the title exists. It becomes borderline untouchable in practice. Now imagine what that means for Meghan's world of branding, deals, and public image. All of the sudden, of course, this stops being palace drama and starts to be a legitimate business issue. And then there's Andrew Loney, royal biographer, who is in the national spotlight at this moment. He is the author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, and he is remarkable in that he reportedly prophesied that Andrew could be removed from the title months before events happened. Not some vague gossip, specific predictions. So when Loney wrote for News Nation in November 2025, saying stripping Harry and Meghan's titles would be one of William's first tasks, royal insiders didn't just write it off as just random commentary. Because of his track record, people began listening much more closely. But the line that really sent shivers through royal circles was that getting rid of Andrew has been a very useful exercise in showing what is possible concerning titles. A very useful exercise. That sounds almost clinical, almost strategic.
But the idea that she was Diana was always a fantasy, both of herself and of Harry. And Harry completely misunderstood his mother, who he obviously barely knew, and didn't realize what a manipulative and determined woman she was herself. So he completely misjudged the comparison between Meghan and his mother had amazing status. She looked beautiful, she had terrific poise, she worked very hard at being a royal.
As if the Andrew encounter wasn't just about one man, but about showing how far royal power could travel once the process was exposed to the public. And that's why some observers now think that William didn't just observe the Andrew fallout, he might have observed the progress of each stage in excruciating detail, understanding very precisely how the machinery runs, lest it ever be put to use again. I know it sounds calculated, cynical, and most people hear all too much. They hear all of this and they immediately think it. But the reason that conversation continues to pick up speed is because those signals aren't just coming from an occasional gossip story. When those connected to William's circle suddenly begin making their communications on regular basis to the journalist, the leaks themselves no longer seem like unguarded leaks, but rather controlled messages. Every time there is a pushback by Sussex side news, reaction follows a familiar pattern, describing them as deranged conspiracy, dismissing the stories, outright rejecting the narrative. But these were by now being noticed by critics, the odd things. The accusations may shift, the headlines may shift, but the denials are all sounding louder and more urgent every time. What makes things even more fraught, however, is that some royal watchers feel the title issue isn't a future event awaiting King William V in their mind. The distancing process had already begun years earlier, gradually and publicly, piece by piece. Consider May 6, 2023, when participants went on the coronation balcony. among the most symbolic moments in royal history.
Well, absolutely. That is her hypocrisy and her narcissism and her commercialization and, frankly, her appalling behavior. That she never intended to stay in Britain, but just took the title. And in the end, what I really hold against her, she betrayed all those people who tried very hard, from the best of intentions, from the Queen downwards, to make her feel welcome and believe that she would integrate herself into the royal family, into Britain.
The royal family assembled over Buckingham Palace, and the country stood by as the plane passed overhead. Cameras took a wide view of every face by the side of the king. But the group was dramatically smaller than most anticipated. Only 15 people appeared: Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, their children, Anne, Tim Lawrence, Edward, Sophie, the Gloucesters, and the Duke of Kent. Working royals only. And then the line that truly stood out. "The king has been very clear who he wants to represent the monarchy," said a palace hand on the palace newsroom floor, said to the Mirror. "There is little room for sentiment. This is a state occasion, not a family occasion." Little room for sentiment. That hit hard because it was so cold and deliberate. But tactically, it also totally shifted the framing. The exclusion no longer appeared emotional or personal. Rather, it was offered as professionalism, obligation, and structure. Not punishment, policy. There's also royal reporting that says William won't reverse direction. A friend of William reportedly said to Daily Mail journalist Richard Eden in June 2025, "When the older members of the family retire, His Royal Highness will have no intention of expanding the family or of rehiring Harry and Meghan." Rehiring. That one word really surprised many. It helped to make the relationship feel less like familial tension and more like a formal division in an institution. Just kind of like Harry and Meghan stepped away from official roles, and William now views that decision as final, with no path back in. From that vantage point, the monarchy looks very straightforward to William. You either work for the institution or you don't. There's no half in, half out anymore. And the ripple effect might not come to an end with Harry and Meghan. The Sunday Times royal editor Roya Nika went on to say that under William's future reign, official working royal positions for Archie and Lilibet were unlikely in June 2025. That tidbit immediately prompted questions concerning what the future role of the next generation's role within the monarchy would actually be.
What she couldn't understand was the language. She couldn't understand what being royal means. She didn't understand the nature of trust. And that's the thing about Meghan. She is a very, very deceitful person. It's got to be said, in her relationships with her own family is one sign. But the other is that all the inaccuracies which she told Oprah Winfrey, which of course caused huge damage to Britain's reputation around the world and still do, and continued.
Then things turned even more tense, reportedly, when a friend of William replied to Harry's suggestion that Archie and Lilibet would keep their titles and then make up their own minds, or work as working royals later on. In an interview with the Daily Beast, the friend reportedly brushed aside the idea by saying, "This is just trolling on the part of Harry and Meghan." The comment soared like one of those bullets through the palace walls. For by that time, this was no longer a family disagreement anyone ever has a private time with. It seemed like two parallel visions of the monarchy bursting into public view. The notion that somehow when you have a vestigial HRH as a baby, you later qualify as a working royal is beyond parody, even for them. That quote didn't sound emotional. It sounded icy, not irritation, not annoyance, something colder. Beyond parody has a tone many royal watchers took as outright contempt. And that's why the situation seems so serious today. Anger can cool off with time. Families quarrel, feelings cool down, relationships heal. But contempt? Contempt hardens. It becomes permanent. And then there's the detail that leaves people stunned each time it is listed. Princess Lilibet is in fact 4 years old, and her uncle, the future King of England, is said to have never met her face to face. Not they'd not seen each other recently. Not they drifted apart. Never met. They never crossed paths. the truth must come to a head. Not once. By May 2026, Woman and Home found out that William still did not meet Lilibet face-to-face. Because in June 2022, they were supposedly only a short drive away, yet Lilibet was visiting Britain for the first time. Same country, same royal circle, same historic family. Yet somehow, no meeting occurred. For people watching this unfold, it's silence that screams louder than any official statement ever could. Because critics think that if one day William signs letters patent relating to Lilibet's title as princess, critics say it won't seem as if some distant administrative matter of relatives he barely knows would be in question. It will involve a niece from whom he has intentionally kept distanced himself for years. That changes the emotional burden of the whole story. And it doesn't end a story like this. People speculate that George, Charlotte, and Louis also have little to no relationship with Archie and Lilibet. No shared holidays, no birthday traditions, no family summers passing through Balmoral together like the previous royals did. To many observers, the splitting of the family no longer appears temporary. It looks complete. The titles become secondary at that time. The emotional separation had occurred long ago. The paperwork would merely formalize what has already been made public. In May 2026, Emily Andrews, royal editor at Woman and Home, reported, "To me, it's obvious that King William will at the very least take the princess titles from Archie and Lily." Obvious. That word had an immediate impact. Not possible. Not there's a chance. She leaned into a word that people use for things that seem almost certain to be inevitable. But what really caught my eye was what followed. Andrews also suggested that William could do something even further, removing Harry and Meghan's titles as well, all while doing so in the public eye in the name of a modernized monarchy. And then the phrase that carried the biggest sting, never want to share a room again with Harry, although maybe at King Charles's deathbed. And then came the claim, a surprise for even the royal observers. Reports were said to say that William could stop Harry from attending Charles's funeral, his own father's funeral. That possibility shifted the tone of the entire conversation, for it's no longer palace tactics or royal reorganization. It sounded deeply personal, cold, final. That kind of family rupture that hardens over time instead of healing. And that's when people begin linking this emotional gap to the legal machinery we've been talking about in the past. Because as resentment becomes institutionalized, so it ceases to be private family pain and begins showing up in documents, royal decrees, and government records. Many observers view this tension with such sadness because Archie and Lilibet were not involved in causing any of this tension. They were born into one of the most public family conflicts on the planet. But detractors fear that they might grow up learning their uncle, a future king, had stripped them of titles that had been granted them at birth by a signed royal order. And here's the reason people take the likelihood seriously. There's already a contemporary example on how these situations play out. The Andrew case paved the way. As of October 30th, 2023, Buckingham Palace announced Prince Andrew's name would transfer to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And then there was another telling detail lurking deep in the formal language. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. Surrender the lease. These were brutally clinical words at the same time. Andrew was not easily coaxed to leave Royal Lodge. Reports characterized it as a formal eviction process directly connected to his loss of royal standing. Harry and Meghan are not in the same financial position now, as Frogmore Cottage was vacated in 2023, so this would not be of a property sort of thing. But critics say the titles themselves are now the true asset in the middle of the storm. That's the aspect many believe has huge implications. That this is so, because when official titles vanish, the impact ripples long beyond palace ceremonies. It extends to branding, public persona, contracts, introductions, business dealings, global visibility. And the words used in Andrew's case illustrated how extensive those changes are. The London Gazette posted a notice. He cannot be addressed or referred to by any title attaching to his peerage in any civil or military commission, letters patent, or other official document. One official notice, and all of a sudden, decades of royal identity were written into a surname, on paper. Any official document. Those 3 words in the London Gazette suddenly mean a whole new ballgame when people begin to link them up with Meghan's world of business. Because critics say the true shockwave wouldn't end at palace protocol or royal ceremonies. It might hit branding, contracts, media projects, and public identity all at once. Consider American Riviera Orchard LLC, reportedly linked publicly to the name Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Then there's Archewell Productions, which was launched for years as part of the branding of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Netflix deals, television appearances and speaking appearances, publishing contracts, partnerships or sponsorships, and interviews or promotional campaigns, all connected somewhere to known titles around the world. And that is where the tension mounted. If Letters Patent legally altered that title, everyone would then have to wonder, what happens to all the commercial deals you have made over them? Contracts can technically always be reworked. Language is rewritten by lawyers all the time. But as royal commentators say, the fundamental problem is commercial utility, because the debate involves more than paperwork. Netflix wasn't evidently investing just in Meghan as a former television actress from Suits, or as long as I can remember it was. The worldwide interest stemmed partly from the royal connection, palace access, symbolism, and controversy, as well as the personal identity the Duchess of Sussex had taken. That title was known worldwide, and not something money can effortlessly generate. The branding equation changes overnight if the title disappeared officially, critics say. The public image shifts. The marketing language changes. Even the way in which companies present old projects can suddenly become complicated. And here's where lawyers and royal analysts raise the commercial risk conversation. However, if titles were removed under official royal action, any future business material that continues to present those titles as current could cause serious disputes over accuracy and representation. Websites, promo bios, media creds, archived branding, press releases, everything could all need immediate amendments. Consider the scope of that cleanup. Every company page updated, every product description rewritten, every introduction adjusted, every old headline transformed into a snapshot reflecting an era past rather than the current reality. It would be a massive commercial reset. But then the story's constitutional twist takes an even stranger turn. The reason is that titles and succession are not even the same thing. That's a paradox many people don't realize. Prince Andrew lost royal styles and honors, but according to the report, he was 8th in line to the throne. Why? Because getting someone out of the line of succession is a whole lot harder than pulling titles. It needs an act of parliament and, under the Statute of Westminster 1931, approval from all 15 Commonwealth realms. Canada, Australia, Jamaica. Everyone would have to agree. That degree of international coordination makes big changes to succession extremely difficult, which means that in theory, Archie and Lilibet could stay in the line of succession even if royal titles changed later. They'd still stick in the constitutional structure of the monarchy, but no longer carry the visible royal labels they now know. And that creates the image many royal observers find so dismaying. 2 children still linked to the monarchy by blood and bloodlines, but publicly known only as Archie Mountbatten-Windsor and Lilibet Mountbatten-Windsor, stripped of their once assigned titles as Prince and Princess. No royal balcony appearances, no official state occasions, no titles on official documents, linked to family by blood, distanced from the institution itself. That's the future that some royal commentators have now concerned themselves with for Archie and Lilibet, a sort of constitutional limbo that seems both symbolic and deeply personal. And what makes this debate so fierce is that proponents of the theory cite a series of growing popular gatherings that they argue have already established the stage. The London Gazette on November 5, 2025, issued its official version of the Letters Patent, stripping Prince Andrew of his HRH status and also his princely title. Not rumor, not anonymous whispers. Official government record, permanently archived. Then, on March 26, 2026, Tom Bower's Betrayal launched onto the shelves. In the book, Bower privately tells Harry his royal status has become no longer invincible, as he was shocked to see what happened to Andrew. Bauer relied on over 80 sources to create the project. And his previous royal predictions haven't gone unnoticed. Some have been proven correct. Then, in May 2026, royal editor Emily Andrews said, "It's obvious King William will strip Archie and Lilibet of their titles at the very least. Not maybe, not possibly." She used the word obvious publicly under her own byline. And at around the same time, Andrew Loney, the royal biographer who allegedly predicted Andrew's loss of his title months before it occurred, said taking away Harry and Meghan's titles would be one of William's first tasks. When you put all these moments in line, proponents of the story maintain, this narrative ceases to look like a random jumble of random speculation and begins taking on the look of a type of pattern already existing in the light. The legal mechanism exists. The precedent has already been publicly tested. It showed that it can move quickly. And the language coming out of royal commentators continues to sound more confident every month. So here you have people who argue that timing is the one big unknown. If William will finally be king, critics suspect any action could come very quickly, possibly within days of his reign beginning. The process of moving from mourning to institutional decision-making could progress much more quickly than the public thinks. And that potential is what keeps this alive online. Since once letters patent are published in the London Gazette, reversal of them is extraordinarily difficult. A public relations campaign would not wipe a government record from the record. Denial by a spokesperson cannot overturn royal legislation. Media support and public sympathy do not by themselves supersede constitutional power. And that is the finality that people continue to focus on. If the title of the Duchess of Sussex were to be formally taken away, the very brand attached to it would no longer be about the now, but would be seen more like a historical reference. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, would cease to function as an active royal title and become part of a time-honored chapter within an entire time period rather than a current designation. And for critics tuning into the action, that potential is much more than a title change. For them, it is the moment a royal separation is truly irreversible in history. And in the end, if this was to play out as royal insiders and biographers have been warning it so often, then one day Archie and Lilibet could come to understand that the institution from which their father stepped away has also, in turn, formally left them behind. They're going to feel for themselves like this after the fact, immortalized forever in the London Gazette for history's eye. That's the part people find most difficult to process. Tom Bauer argues William may even go so far as to ban Harry from King Charles's funeral. Andrew Loney said that William doesn't even recognize his brother anymore. Emily Andrews points out that by eliminating the titles, you find it obvious. Gradually, from royal commentators, we find that language sounds less emotional and more institutional rather than personal, just as if their personal anger is slowly turning into extended royal policy. And that raises a much larger question than most headlines want to pose out loud. If William is really willing to cut titles off from the name of a 4-year-old girl he's apparently never even met, his own niece, Lilibet, a name that literally took from Queen Elizabeth. What stops this? It proved royal titles can disappear faster than the Andrew situation. But the balcony for the coronation had proved that public access to the monarchy can be unapologetically constrained. And the reports about Charles's forthcoming funeral indicate that even the most sacred family moments may no longer be protected from this divide. Meghan's public identity, global branding, and business image, meanwhile, is still so closely linked to the title that many consider William could get rid of pretty much as soon as he reaches the throne. One signature, one sealed document, one official statement. And you change the whole landscape overnight. And that's why this story now looks bigger than celebrity gossip. It's a story about power, legacy, loyalty, and how far a king in the future might be prepared to go once he finally wears the crown. And honestly, some folks don't think anyone close to Harry and Meghan will realize how much those changes are real or not permanent once the real machinery of monarchy starts rolling once more either. Oh, so I would like to hear your opinion now. Do you think this royal feud already has gone too far anymore? Can indeed William take steps to remove the Sussex titles? This discussion is only intensifying by week at the drop of a hat. Your thoughts can be placed in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you want a deep dive into the royal drama that nobody else is fully unpacking. There's so much more coming, and new reports, hidden details, and another explosive sequel about what insiders say will happen behind palace doors next. Watch out, you see. This story is only just beginning.
Meghan Markle's shocking humiliation in Geneva finally proves that she has just gone mad. I mean, this was the moment, Nancy Sidley pointed it out, this was the moment, the major defeat on her face when she realised that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech, a hypocritical speech, a speech which blows out of the water every single thing that she has argued in terms of her brand.
Meghan Markle arrived in Geneva with a clear mission: speak about children's online safety at a major World Health Organization event. But almost instantly, the conversation spun in a completely different direction. Instead of headlines focusing on the cause itself, attention shifted toward Meghan, the optics, the reactions, and the growing questions that now seem to follow nearly every public appearance she makes. And that sudden shift said a lot more than people first realized. The gap between what was supposed to happen and what actually unfolded exposed a much bigger issue quietly building around her public image. This was not some random one-off moment either. Over the past year, the same pattern has kept appearing again and again. A new launch gets announced, a polished appearance is planned, a carefully crafted message is prepared, yet somehow the public conversation drifts somewhere else entirely. But Geneva felt different, bigger, sharper, harder to ignore. The disconnect between intention and reality became impossible to miss because everything unraveled so fast and so publicly. What should have been a serious humanitarian moment suddenly turned into a storm of conflicting reactions, awkward headlines, and non-stop online debate. And the most surprising part? The problems did not come from one single controversy. They stacked on top of each other like dominoes falling in real time. That is what made this week so chaotic.
Prince William's jaw pointed out she was assigned to a bus stop. Look at that. Look at in the red circle. So actually, the woman who everyone's saying is there to watch was actually just...
The deeper you look at Geneva, the more you start noticing how every thread connected behind the scenes. The event itself centered on the World Health Organization's discussions surrounding children's digital safety. Meghan appeared beside WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus near Geneva's famous Broken Chair Monument, the massive sculpture standing outside the United Nations complex. It was supposed to project seriousness, compassion, and global leadership. Instead, it became the backdrop for a week filled with tension, scrutiny, and questions nobody expected to dominate the conversation so quickly. Meghan stepped onto the stage delivering a serious warning about the dangers growing inside the digital world. She spoke about harmful algorithms, addictive platform designs, artificial intelligence, and the growing pressure on governments and tech companies to finally create safer online spaces for children. Her message was clear: stronger protections were needed before things spiral even further out of control. She compared unchecked digital products to physical products that would never legally reach the public without safety testing first. And that comparison instantly grabbed attention because it pointed straight at one uncomfortable question many parents have already been asking behind closed doors. Why are tech companies allowed to experiment on people in real time with almost no accountability?
So why does Meghan Markle need security? There's a street with cars behind her, no crowds, people walking by, not caring. Nobody cares about what Meghan Markle had to say. She posts her own kids online. And New York Vicky, I think, really got the mood of this one right by suggesting that Meghan Markle is the antithesis of the icon that she thinks she is. She is the grandiose narcissist whose displays of self-worship are now and always have been farcical. And she zoomed in on the faces of those watching.
She also went deeper into how algorithms are specifically designed to maximize engagement, even when that engagement may cause emotional harm, unhealthy behavior, or dangerous online environments for younger users. Meghan pushed for international cooperation and tougher standards that could force powerful technology companies, representatives, and organizers already scheduled to be there. Meanwhile, the massive broken chair monument, towering near the United Nations complex, seemed to attract more spontaneous attention from tourists than the actual speech happening only a short distance away. That detail exploded online almost instantly. Screenshots of open spaces around the area started circulating within minutes. Clips were paused, zoomed in, replayed frame by frame, and dissected across social media like a full investigation. Online critics who had spent years questioning Meghan's real level of global influence suddenly treated the footage like proof supporting their argument. To them, the visuals told a very different story than the polished image the event was supposed to project. Now, whether those criticisms were fully fair is a separate debate entirely. Outdoor policy events are not concerts, and public attendance near a busy tourist landmark does not automatically measure success or failure. But on the internet, perception moves faster than context ever can. And once those images started spreading, the narrative attached to them moved at lightning speed. By the time explanations or clarifications appeared, the clips had already shaped public opinion for millions of viewers scrolling online. The timing made everything even worse because the comparisons arrived on
digital spaces to exist without basic protections for young people. But let's do something now so that they will also look back and see that during this increasingly polarized time, where people can barely agree on basic facts, that beyond politics.
Just days earlier, Princess Catherine's appearances in Italy had generated the kind of massive public scenes people normally associate with senior working royals. Streets packed with supporters, crowds waiting for hours just to catch a glimpse, huge waves of public energy following every stop of the tour. The images coming out of Italy looked polished, powerful, and impossible to ignore. So when the Geneva footage appeared right afterward, social media did what it always does. It compared the two side by side. And in the harsh world of online optics, those comparisons created a brutal contrast. One set of images projected excitement, scale, and public fascination. The other triggered debates about visibility, influence, and whether Meghan's carefully crafted international rebrand was connecting with the public in the way her team had hoped. The contrast hit social media like a lightning strike, and people reacted fast. Within hours, users were placing the Geneva footage beside the images from Princess Catherine's Italy appearances, creating side-by-side comparisons that instantly took over the online conversation. Some people approached it carefully, pointing out that a policy discussion at an international organization is obviously not the same thing as a royal walkabout packed with supporters and cameras. But a huge number of people skipped those distinctions completely. Supporters of Catherine argued the comparison highlighted the enormous pull of the monarchy itself.
Or party lines, beyond demographics, incomes, or ideologies, beyond race or religion, we could all universally agree on one thing. We want our children to be safe. Let our children look back at this moment and let them feel proud of us, that we chose something better for them and for us all. Thank you.
Their point was simple. The royal institution creates a level of public fascination and attention that celebrity advocacy alone cannot easily recreate, no matter how serious the cause or how global the stage may look. Meanwhile, critics of Meghan claimed the Geneva footage exposed something Prince Harry had once resisted admitting publicly: that much of the intense attention surrounding the couple during their royal years came from the institution connected to them, not necessarily from personal star power alone. According to that argument, once the royal structure disappears, the automatic crowds, excitement, and media energy do not always follow behind. Now, whether that argument is fully fair is still heavily debated. The events had completely different purposes, completely different audiences, and completely different dynamics surrounding them. Comparing a humanitarian policy speech to a major royal public appearance is not exactly equal. But social media rarely slows down long enough to care about nuance. What mattered was that the visuals were dramatic, easy to compare, and perfectly matched narratives people already wanted to believe. That is why the conversation exploded so quickly and stayed alive for days. The actual content of Meghan's speech, the warnings about digital safety and online harm, started getting buried underneath debates about influence, popularity, and public attention.
Her face as she realizes nobody's there for me, but they were all there for Catherine. And do you remember when Harry used to say the reason that the royal family was so threatened by Ms. Markle was because of the way she pulled the crowds? Now, of course, there is a reason why this speech was so disgusting. And I'm going to get into the details of it, by the way, because she is using the grieving parents again of young people who have taken their own lives while at the same time doing the exact thing she claims has led.
Then came the second issue. And this one became even harder for critics and supporters to argue away. Before arriving in Geneva, Meghan posted a photo to Instagram. At first glance, the image seemed warm, relaxed, and carefully personal. She appeared to be getting ready in what looked like a dressing area before the event. Near her feet was her young daughter, Lilibet, captured in what Meghan described as a mama's little helper moment. The post carried the polished but casual tone celebrity audiences recognize instantly. Soft family branding mixed with behind-the-scenes access. And almost immediately, people started zooming in again. Supporters viewed the photo as harmless and relatable, the kind of personal content many public figures share to balance serious public work with family life. But critics saw something else entirely. They questioned the timing, the presentation, and whether blending a child-focused humanitarian appearance with personal family imagery risked distracting from the actual issues she had traveled to discuss in the first place. Within hours, the Instagram post became its own separate online storm, adding another layer of scrutiny to a week that was already spinning in unpredictable directions. But once the photo hit the internet, people did not just glance at it and move on. They analyzed every inch of it like detectives. Viewers quickly noticed the carefully arranged details sitting in the background. Hanging clearly in the frame were the exact clothes Meghan would later wear at the Geneva event. The blazer, the shoes, the polished outfit already prepared and positioned perfectly for the camera. That is when the criticism started building fast. Critics argued the image did not feel spontaneous at all. To them, it looked highly staged, almost like a carefully designed lifestyle shot released ahead of a major international appearance. And because her daughter appeared in the frame, many people claimed the emotional warmth of the family moment also functioned as part of the branding strategy surrounding the event itself. Now, nobody outside Meghan's circle can truly know what the intention behind the photo was. Social media often blurs the line between personal moments and public image management. But what nobody could ignore was the timing. The image was shared with millions of followers only hours before Meghan stood on a global stage speaking about protecting children from the dangers of online exposure. And that is where the conversation suddenly became much more uncomfortable.
You know what she's doing there, right? She's talking about her own trolling, because that's what this is all about, mark my words. She wants a censored internet. Dr. Tedros was despicable when it came to censorship of big tech platforms during COVID, trying to shut down people like me telling the truth. And that is what Meghan wants. It is actually gross that she is using grieving parents in this way. But I can't take a word that she says seriously about children.
At the World Health Organization event, Meghan delivered an emotional message about the risks children face online. Algorithmic exploitation, digital manipulation, addictive platforms, and the long-term harm that can come from exposing young people to massive online audiences without meaningful protection. She spoke about the responsibility adults have to create safer digital environments instead of simply benefiting from children's visibility online. But while that speech was unfolding, the photo of her young daughter remained live on her Instagram page, circulating across social media, gathering millions of views, likes, reposts, and reactions. Critics did not have to stretch the argument very far. The contradiction was already sitting in public view. The same public figure warning about the dangers of online exposure for children had shared an image of her own 4-year-old child to an account followed by millions of people. And she had done it on the exact morning she planned to deliver that message. For critics, the optics could not have been worse. The issue was no longer about fashion, crowd size, or royal comparisons. It became about consistency. Journalist Tom Sykes pushed the debate even further by framing the question directly. His argument was not centered on popularity or palace drama, that partially hiding a child's face online does not automatically create real privacy. In some cases, showing only part of a child, the side of a face, a blurred angle, or a figure placed at the edge of a frame, can actually increase curiosity because people start zooming in, speculating, and searching for more. And that detail mattered because these were not